Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Our topic today is managing your inventory exceptions in ICAMU. My name is Julie Zindel, and I'm the VP of Consulting here at Central Data. We have quite a large group joining today's webinar, so we'll give them a couple of minutes to log in. We are bringing these monthly value-added webinars throughout the year as a benefit to our clients. Next month on April 19th, we will be doing another webinar on an introduction to TWL. A few housekeeping items before we begin. Please note that we have clients who are on multiple versions and deployments of Infor ERP. But we will be working with Cloud Suite distribution, so we are always showing the web user interface screens and are always on the latest release of Cloud Suite distribution. The lines will be muted, but if you have a question, please use the chat or the questions section in the GoToMeeting box, and we'll try to answer questions at the end of the presentation. Our presenters today will be Angela Rudolph of Central Data, and we also have a special guest presenter today. Grant Howard is with us. Angela Rudolph formerly worked for a wholesale Jan/San distributor for 22 years, and she oversaw the inventory management group. Angela provides training and consulting for several areas of the ERP, but her primary niche is in inventory replenishment, working with buyers and supply chain managers. And she lives and works out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Grant Howard is probably well known to everyone on this meeting today. He provides training on operations, warehousing, inventory management, and systems utilizations. Grant, I'd like to start today's session by turning the first part of today's webinar over to you if you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. And just to confirm, you can hear my voice okay?
Yes, you're good.
And you can see the screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Well, welcome everyone. And today, as Julie, she got a hold of me and we're going to talk about proactive maintenance. And again, as Julie said, you know, I've probably met a lot of you. You've attended TUG, you've come to our May seminar. And so I'm going to bring it into that area around the 10 steps just to give it a little bit to go with it. But again, as we're talking about inventory management, it's stellar customer service at the lowest cost. And again, we've all gone through things the last 3 years. And what I always like to say, whether we're in normal times, we're in a pandemic, we're in a post-pandemic, we've got inflation, we've got shortage of employees, we've got a number of things that are going on, recessions, transportation, interruptions in inventory. And what I've learned, and many distributors have learned, is the better off you are up front, no matter what time you're in, the better you're using best practices, the better you're maintaining your system, the better you are going to go through all of those. And I've often mentioned, and it's a tough thing to say sometimes, it's easier during a recession. Companies that do not have everything together, they're not doing everything, they're already struggling a little bit under the normal. And then when any of these situations come along, let alone 2 or 3 of them at the same time, it's really difficult. So I always push that it's always a great time to get best practices, best practices of all types, but inventory management in this point, into your organization, into your people, into your departments. And it's going to just make you thrive during great times, but do more than survive during tough times. It really will help push you through. So with that being said, we're going to talk about 3 areas today overall of best practices inventory management from a big picture. I always think about 3 areas. It's, do you have good numbers? And that we're talking about your order point, or the point at which you order, your reorder point, or your min, whatever you call it, your preference, but your order point. If that's not correct, it's not going to order at the right time. You're going to have stock outs in between, or it's going to order too soon. Of course, having a good line point, a good EOQ, and a good surplus point. So the first thing is having good numbers. And in a minute, I'll show you steps 1 through 4. Well, I'll just pull up right now. So over on the right is what we're always trying to get here. Do we have a good order point, line point, surplus point? This is what our system uses to tell your inventory replenishment people when it's time to buy, how much you should be buying. When you have too much, you should get rid of some of this. So it's easy to talk about, but you need it to be reasonable. So again, do you have good numbers? And that's parameters and setup, good data, usage and lead time, and everybody. You know, it's just like I used to share. I have a distribution degree. And when you talked about that up to about 3 years ago, everyone was, most people, not us, but out in the regular world, they're, huh? What's that? You know, supply chain, huh? What's that? Well, now everyone, if you mention supply chain, their head turns and they understand what you're talking about, at least from the interruptions that happen. So again, for this to work, good parameters, good data, and again, that's that usage and lead time that's gone so astray for many of us in the last few years. Good forecasting and good purchase not available. Then once you have good numbers, though, that's not it. Now you got to use the system right. Are you using the RAR to say, when do I need to replenish and what's the right quantities? Am I doing the timeline analysis? And again, that's another one that a lot of people didn't understand, including distributors. They would normally place a PO, wait for the PO to come in, it arrive, they'd use up some of the stock, they'd place another PO. Timeline is out there saying, I've got multiple POs in the supply chain. Do I need to speed them up to get here sooner because my lead times and usages have shifted? Or do I need to slow them down? A lot of you at the beginning were trying to get them here quicker 2 years ago. And now the last 3 to 4 months, depending on which industry you're in, you're like, geez, I've got all these POs out there and I've got to slow them down. They're arriving and it's more than I need. That's that timeline. And then, of course, surplus. So 5, 6, and 7 is what I call the tools. Are you utilizing the tools properly? Then, and this is where we're going to concentrate today, step 8 I call proactive maintenance. When your usage isn't right, your lead time, your parameters, something not working right. And in a lot of organizations, they're over manhandling the RAR when they're cutting the PO, adjusting quantities on it, removing lines, adding lines to it, rather than, or at the same time, saying, why didn't this show up? Or why is it ordering too much? Or why is it ordering too little? Or why did it not show up? As you're discovering that, the whole key is to go back into this proactive maintenance. So there's 2 areas you're going to do that from. As you're working the system and doing your POs, as you're doing your timeline, as you're doing your surplus, but then through this proactive approach, which is the ICAMU, the system also is set up, you can set up to find things for you. So you're not getting them at time of replenishment and you're going, geez, I wish I would have known that 2 weeks ago. The whole idea is that to be able to catch things ahead of time, get it corrected, whether it's data or parameters, and keep your order points, line points, EOQ, surplus points working better. Then, of course, 9 is measurement and monitoring, and then 10 is controlled replenishment. So 8, 9, and 10 is what I call the optimization of your inventory management and your system and your people. That's where you've got good numbers, you're using it right, but now making it even better through proactive maintenance. I'm measuring things to see where I'm at, where I want to go. Am I getting there? And finding opportunities. And then, of course, controlled replenishment. So now we're jumping right into step 8, the proactive maintenance side of things. And again, we've talked about this. There's 2 times overall you're going to do proactive maintenance. While you're doing the inventory function, if something's not working right, if you're adding a line, deleting a line, changing a quantity on a PO, a work order, or a warehouse transfer, and it's not a one-off. Hey, we just know something's coming up in a month. One time I'm ordering some extra. That's not what we're talking about. It's these reoccurring things, and you're going, wow, I always got to remember, and here's the simplest one I always talk about. I always got to remember to round the package quantity. Well, no, I might do it this time on the PO, but go in and fix your package quantities. Let the system do the work for you. And again, if things go below order point, before you expect it, or they don't go below order point, all these things, do the maintenance. Then, of course, and today, good exception control center, the ICAMU, and it takes 2 parts, the understanding of what that is telling you, and then the proper way to utilize your system to fix it. Do I need to massage my data buckets, my average or my usage buckets? Do I need to go and look at my lead time receipts? And again, we had 120 days in there for months and months it was coming in, and now it's coming down to 90, 60. It still has all this old history in it. So again, I might have to do some of that. So the exception control center, and here's what I'd like to share before I get in there, 2 hints. A lot of us, when we get in there, it's like, oh, should I massage this usage? Should I make it 10 or 12? They've been buying 12, and I always come back and suggest to people, we're trying to deliver customer stellar experience at the lowest cost. Well, when you're down in the weeds thinking about a particular item and how to fix it and how deep you should go, hits and cost. If you look at the hits of the item and it's a low hit item, you're going to be careful because you're not going to sell it off very quickly. So you're going to be careful what you bring in, how much you prop it up, and things like that. If it's a high hit item, you're going to be more relaxed in, hey, that 10 or 12, I'll load the 12 if it's a high hit item for that month rather than the 10. And then, of course, cost. Low cost items, I'm willing to do more with. High cost items, I'm going to watch. So if you bring hits, and what that does, it keeps you lined up with customer experience. What hits and cost does is line you back up with our company objectives of inventory management, stellar customer experience at the lowest cost. So hits keeps us related to that, how important it is to the customer or not important, and how well we're going to be able to sell it off if we bring it in. And cost is, again, how big of a chance I'm going to take. And those two really help drive how you're going to do your proactive maintenance, whether you're changing your parameters or changing your data. And then I always like people get in there and they're going, there's so much with inventory management, Grant. There's not. There is, but there's not. There's 12 areas. It's going to be something with your usage, your lead time, your safety stock, or your adjusters for order point. On the line point, it's going to be something with your review cycle or your EOQ. Or your purchase not available. Sometimes it's just that. Oh, they stock adjusted something in or out. We lost it. We've got a lot of open paper flow. And then, of course, your stock status. We shouldn't be stocking this, and we are. We aren't stocking it, and we should be. Are my ARPs, my paths, my authorized replenishment paths correct? Do I have threshold minimums in place that are causing issues? And or is this item frozen and I need to unfreeze it or change it? It's only one of those 12 areas that's keeping your system from performing the way you want it to. So with that, let's talk about the ICAMU Exception Control Center. There's two parts that I always talk about, and I'm not going to go into the first part, but in ICSR, you have to set up, how do I want these the control center to put out these reports, these things I'm going to monitor. And again, it's putting fences around it so that you're finding the exceptions, but also not getting so loaded up with exceptions that you can't work them. So you can come into then your ICAMU, and again, you're going to hit exception. You'd come down here, and here you would get this box, and you're going to say, which exceptions am I going to work today? I'm going to take a look at my average sale quantity, max exceeded. I'm going to look at my exceptional usage, and we're going to talk about each one of these. But this is where you would come and run it from. And again, the key is in ICSR, setting it up so it responds to your company's strategy and tactics of what's an exception, what do I need to look at, what would cause me heartburn at the time of cutting the PO or WT that I could have known about 2, 3, 4 weeks ago and addressed. So there's 10 of them. There's actually 11 of them. One of them, Angela may talk about it. I forget which one. It's the extended lead time. I just remembered. But here's the 10. They're not in priority order. They're in order of, do I stock it or not? Good order point, good line point, good EOQ, so on and so forth. So the first one, and this is the one that I always tell people, you have to work first. This is order as needed or do not reorder or non-replenished, non-stock items that take hits. So I've got an item out there that I don't stock normally, and if I take enough hits against it, I should be possibly stocking it. And so this is just a report that comes up that says, when you set it up, if you get X amount of hits in X amount of months, and it's a product that we don't stock, put it in front of your buyer inventory manager. It's not going to say, or it's not going to change the stock status, but it's saying, should you stock this? You've taken, and I go into companies, we have items that we have 43, 48, 50, 60, 70 hits on per year. We're selling it multiple times per month and even per week, and they're not stocking it. Now, sometimes there's a good reason, but a lot of times it's just we didn't know. So that's the first tool or the first exception report I tell folks to work. Should we stock it or not? Because everything starts with that. Then, after we've decided whether we're going to stock it or not, the next exception is, of course, the basis for all inventory management is our usage. Usage during lead time plus safety is order point or our min. Then usage during the order cycle or review cycle creates our line point. Usage against the cost of carrying, cost of purchase creates our EOQ or our recommended order quantities. And I know I'm talking a little bit, and I don't need to, about this area because all of you have had great consistent usage the last 2 or 3 years. There's been no problem there, Grant. You know where I'm going. When we started coming into COVID and the pandemic, 6 months, because we were all waiting to say, is this going to stick around or is it going to go away? But 3 to 6 to 9 months in, people started going, oh, usage that is from my past before this happened and now don't necessarily line up. And 2 ways were approached. If you were this proactive company that knew how to use the system, they would say, hey boss, what do we want to do? We want to try to order 50% more of this. We could go in and change our system so it knew what we were trying to do. There was also a whole bunch of companies that they weren't using their system very well to start with. So they plugged in a bunch of frozen min maxes, or they started buying manually. There was a good handful of companies, though, that I've worked with and others that are running best practices. And again, it wasn't easy, don't take me wrong, but they had a methodology. It was just, what's the usage during this period coming up? And we changed it accordingly. So again, it's watching for stock out usage. Did I stock out? So we weren't logging any usage, and we should have been. Low usage, exceptional usage, high usage. So again, this is probably one of the most important areas to get and keep your usage correct. So are you watching your usage exceptions? And again, during the setup in ICSR, you're defining what is low usage, what's an exceptional usage, what's a stock out for your people to come back and take a look at and say, do I need to do some massaging on this? Then the next one, if you're a seasonal business that's running some type of seasonality trending, so you're not running the B backwards methodology when you're calculating usage, you're going back a year and looking forward. HVAC companies, pool distribution, anyone in the landscaping in that world that's seasonal driven, we can't use the last 3, 4, 5 months to predict usage because it's seasonal. So we have to go back a year and look forward. Now, when we go back a year and look forward, that works great to give us our season, but seasons change. From one year to the next, I might be selling more or less. So there's trending. And how much are you going to let your system trend automatically is involved. This is anything that's outside of those trending parameters, high or low, saying, I want it to trend more than you let me. You let me trend 150%, but I'm really up 230%. You're getting in there and working those exceptions. Threshold minimum usages to expire. Now, again, this is a mod on any of the Infor products except for fax at this point. But this is like threshold minimum order points, except it works against usage. So if they're going to expire, you'd want to take a look at that. Your lead time exceptions. Again, same conversation we had in usage. 2, 3 years ago, all of our lead times went way out. They got pretty unstable. And now a lot of us are starting to see, I won't say they've normalized, and we don't think they'll ever normalize, at least for quite a while, back to what they used to be across the line, but they are stabilizing. So am I watching my lead time exceptions? Meaning I normally get this in 30 days and this took 60 days. Should I let that go into my lead time receipts or not? Is it my new norm? Now, normally it takes 2 receipts of consistency to see that, but our system 3 years ago started picking all these lead time exceptions up. We started letting them work in. We expanded out our parameters to accept larger lead time exceptions, and our lead times kept up with us. Safety stock analysis. Do I have the right amount of safety, or do I keep running out, or do I have too much every time I receive it? That's a great way to start saying at an individual pocket, because most of us put safety on in a fashion that is more general. Then the safety stock analysis lets you look at it product by product now and saying, every time you receive this product in, you've still got a 3-month supply and there's only a 2-week lead time. Or every time you receive this product in with some consistency, you're out or almost out. One's recommending you probably need more safety, one's saying you need less safety. Number 7, threshold minimum order points to expire. So again, if you're setting up threshold minimums, at some point what you're doing is you should be putting a date on there, because the whole idea behind a threshold minimum is something in my system, my usage and lead time, doesn't line up with where we're going, whether it was because of the pandemic, we picked up a new customer, we've lost a customer, but somewhere my data is not right. So it's a way to prop up your order point and say, don't let it go below this. Well, how long should we set that, Grant? When do you think the data, usages and lead times will be back in consistent and represent the future? A lot of us, it's 3 to 6 months. So let's say we set it to expire in 6 months. If we just let it expire and don't think about it, about half of those items have fixed themselves and they'll go along fine. Half of those items, the customer's going, what'd you do? You were doing great for 6 months and now it's all falling apart because this history hadn't caught up yet. It wasn't a long enough period. And so the whole idea is to look at it before it expires and say, the reason I froze or put a threshold minimum order point on this item, has it corrected itself? If so, I'll let it expire. If it hasn't, I'm going to change the numbers a little bit, maybe the order point and line point. In this case, the order point, threshold minimum, and then extend out the date a little longer. Threshold minimum order points with low activity. That's where we put threshold minimums on, and we're not getting enough activity to justify them. It's saying, take a look. Maybe you don't need this threshold min or this much. A lot of you have a lot of I'd say blown up threshold minimums because of where we've been and where we're coming out of. You want to be careful because it's trying to hold all that inventory from some of that emotional thinking we were in 12 months ago. Average ship quantity and 5 high exceptions. So there's a calculated order point, usage during lead time plus safety. Sometimes that calculation goes astray. And so instead, it's going to kick in other methods, your threshold minimum order point, which is human set, or what's your average ship quantity, or what's your 5 high. And just a quick example is your order point turns out to calculate to 15. It says you can get down to 15, place a PO or transfer, and you'll have enough product to meet your customer's needs. And if you're some type of central warehouse, your branch needs until the next PO arrives. Sometimes, though, it says, geez, you're really selling 20 at a time, even though you can get down to 15. 20 is a better order point. So again, are you watching your average ship quantity and 5 high exceptions? Do you understand it well enough to set the parameters up? And then when you're working it, to know what I should be working and changing. And then of course, and I'm hoping not too many are using this. It got used much more over the last couple of years. Hopefully they're going away, freezing the actual order point, line point, and EOQ. Don't like them because again, you're taking a dynamic, very robust system and turning it into a manual min-max. It's going to be human driven. There's no dynamics to it. And the only thing that's going to change that if history changes is the human remembering to get in and change it. We freeze a few items, but I'll say this before I move slides. Today, 2 years ago, and even back to today, we're back up to about our system can handle 93 to 96% of our SKUs, order point, line point, and EOQ very well. Better than, not better than a human, but better with a human that has limited time. Let's say it that way. So again, we shouldn't have a lot of freezes, but if you are using freezing, the same thing as what we talked about number 7, threshold min order points to expire. If it's getting ready to unfreeze, say, should I let it unfreeze? Has the system corrected itself for the reason I froze the order point, line point, and EOQ? And let's make sure before we let it unfreeze rather than afterwards and hitting the hurdle again. So those are the 10 exceptions that I talk about. And there is, like I said, one more, the extended lead time. Now with that, here's where I just want to come and bring this back together with a little bit. You know, is your company fighting fires or fire prevention? That's what proactive maintenance, that is the ICAMU. That's fire prevention, catching it ahead of time instead of the day you run out or you're getting the phone call, yellow sticky, or email saying something's wrong. We're not going to catch them all, but if you can catch 80% of them, that's still 80% less you're doing in a panic firefighter mode. So are you spending your days reacting to fires? You may be effective. A lot of people became very effective firefighters. They were pretty good, but now the last 2 years they become very effective. But is it efficient? That last word is supposed to be, is it efficient? I apologize about that. And is it smart? Are you doing the work or is your system doing the work? It's better to be a fire prevention than a firefighter. And again, it comes down to this. If we were able to get it right before the fire started, it takes 6 times less. Or another way to say it, if we could have got it right when we were cutting the rod and we didn't have to do the proactive maintenance then catching it, we would have caught it back here. It takes 1 minute or $1. If we catch it during the fire, it's going to cost us 6 times that, $6 or 6 minutes to get it corrected. Key, it's better to be a fire preventer, be Smokey the Bear rather than a firefighter. Now, I am not going to go through all of these because I'm at my time limit that Julie, and again, I don't need to. Angela's going to go through these, but I wanted to bring back, it's not just working the ICAMU, it's how do I have it set up? So that first one I talked about was order as needed, non-stock items with hits that maybe you should stock. So if you go into ICSR and then the exceptions, and this is down in this part right here, this system is set up if they get 3 hits or more in the last 12 months on an item that we currently don't stock, and they're only looking at frozen and should be order as needed. That check is wrong here as well. If you get back, and Julie, I'll send you this PowerPoint if anyone wants it. This should have been unchecked or checked in this check. But again, if I've had 3 hits in the last 12 months, report it to my buyer. This is if I'm looking at frozen exceptions. This is your threshold low activity. So again, it's all in the setup to getting the right exceptions. And again, people go, what's the right exceptions, Grant? Too many, too little. I always come back and say, your exceptions have to line up with the amount of time that you have. If you're getting way too many and you can't get to them, the most important exception was the one you weren't getting to. So I always say is if you can get through them all, then you're going to open your parameters up a little more and get a few more exceptions. If you can't get it through them all, you're going to turn it down so you can get through it. And in this case, I'll go back. I would come back and say, I can't work all of our non-stocks orders needed that's getting hit on a monthly basis. I'd change the 3 to a 4 or 5 or 6 and bring the list down till I get a streamline, and then I would start opening it back up. So it's setting it up properly for your all the things that we talked about: usage, your trending, your lead times, your safety analysis, and your adjusters. Start on the order needed with hits. And now just to bring this a little bit, just so you know, during June, if you're coming out to TUG, I'll be presenting there, of course. And a lot of people don't know about this, and I always like to introduce it. On Monday before the TUG schedule starts, there's all the SIG groups, the special interest groups. And one of them, of course, is the Advanced Inventory Management, AIM, network meeting. That starts at 1 o'clock on Monday, and that's like a round table. You can turn in questions. I'm going to present a little bit. There's a lot of people there. If you've never attended TUG, one of the biggest thing of TUGs is those other users sitting next to you. When you ask a question, they're going, here's how we do it. So that's on Monday. On Tuesday, going to give a mini keynote around best practices, and that will be geared around a lot today. What's going on with our usages and lead times, and how do we come out of the post-pandemic, but also we have inflation, we have the transportation, we have employee shortages. On Wednesday in the morning, what's measured improves, and utilizing your data. So that'll be a talk about good metrics and measurements. Are you measuring fill rates? Are you measuring turns, on-time delivery? Driving results with Pro Advisor with Tim from Ernest & Associates. That's a BI system. Very powerful. And then also I'm doing an executive session around objectives, execution, and measurement. So that's for TUG in June. And then one other area I wanted to bring up, a lot of you have attended or have heard about it. We do a 3-day best practices conference every year, except for a couple of years during COVID. And again, this goes all the way from the beginning of understanding best practices, and we use Cloud Suite all the way through it. And we will actually walk through the 10 steps first of how to set parameters up, how to utilize your system, all the way through the 10 steps. And again, we always say it, if you're a novice and a beginner, you'll walk back with a lot of things how to use your system. If you come as one of the most advanced users, because we have people that attend every year for multiple years, they still walk away with so many things that they take back with them. Something new this year, on-site or live stream, but I want to talk live stream was more intended to, I've got a lot of companies using it this way. They're sending 6 people, one person can't happen to make it, but they want to be in the discussion the week following. They're attending the live stream, but 5 of them, I mean, we've all been through this. We've learned how to use live stream and WebEx and Teams and all of that. There's nothing like looking at the face. There's nothing like getting your people away from their work job for the day and putting them there for 3 days. It's May 9th through 11th. If you don't have this information, we've sent it out a few times. I will ask Julie to also send this out to all the attendees that are on here today. So again, a couple things there, what's coming up in the future. And that will wrap it up for me. So Angela, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Angela, I'm going to make you the presenter. Give me just a second.
Okay.
And we'll change hats here. Okay, you should be getting the pop-up now, Angela. So we will have a Q&A section at the end here. So if you have a question, you can type it into the chat or the questions section, and we'll try and get to as many as we can this afternoon. Those that we can't answer, we'll do a follow-up with you. So type your questions in as you think of them. And Angela, go right ahead. I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Thanks, Julie and Grant. I will definitely try to leave some room at the end for Q&A. So today, like Grant had said, we'll go through the exceptions. We'll go through what are the exceptions, who manages those exceptions, when are they presented, and where are they located in order for the buyers to execute against them. So the functionality of it is you have to run a monthly ICAM. Then the ICAMs are, the exceptions are located in your ICAM use center. We'll go through a few of the exception types, and then I'll demo a manual product list and mask updates. Okay, so what are the exceptions? Well, the purpose of the exceptions is to notify the buyer. You want the buyer to look at these exceptions based upon how you have your settings in ICSR, as Grant was talking about. They should review these exceptions monthly and make any adjustments accordingly. Again, it can control your replenishment. You want to make sure your exceptions are corrected and are right in order for you to make proper buying decisions. Because if not, and the exceptions are not clean, you can make bad buying decisions. You could affect customer service as well. So the standard functionality of CSD includes those frozen exceptions that Grant touched upon, your low usage items, new products coming into the system, extended stock outs, and products with exceptional high usage out of the norm, of course, and then products with a frozen lead time of 0. You definitely don't want a lead time of 0 frozen lead time, because that goes into your order point parameter. And again, you're trying to make sure your controls are calculating properly. And then there is your exceptions that are also auto replenish. You can set those up in ICSR as well, where you can set up where the buyers don't, you can review them. They're not frozen, but the buyers can review them. But you put in your ICSR parameters how you want those controls to be overridden. And those are your low usage, your stock out exceptions, and exceptional usage, those anomaly sales that happen from time to time. So at month-end processing, the ICAM, which we'll talk about, is the month-end report that actually creates the exceptions. And then once the report runs, it creates the exceptions, and then the buyers will go to review in the product exception center in ICAMU. Again, the whole goal of your exceptions is to develop effective and useful information. That is the main objective here. You want to make sure your usage is good, it has the right accurate numbers in there, so that your order points and line point are good for replenishment. If it's unreliable and inconsistent, it can lead to poor service fill rates and dissatisfied customers. So that's why this is a very, very important topic, to ensure that those buyers are reviewing those exceptions. If they're not, and they're not managing those exceptions, again, you could have too much inventory or not enough inventory. So it's real important to have those reviewed monthly. They can be reviewed at month end. So most of the exceptions are at month end. There are 2 exceptions that are daily, and that is your safety review and your PO lead time review. So at the time of receipt, based upon you're not available, the system will alert you of an exception to say you may be carrying too much safety stock, and or your lead time may be out of the parameters that you have set in ICSR. Okay. We'll talk a little bit about the ICAM and what it does. So we talked about the ICAM report running, and the ICAM report will update those balances and frozen products. It directly affects your inventory files and builds usage. It rolls the balance and it calculates those controls, and it freezes the product to kind of alert the buyer to say, take a look. And if the process function is, if you run your ICAM daily or weekly, you should not freeze products. But you want to merge your history so that your history is always updated from prior day. When you set the report to run at month end, you're going to want to merge your history, update your controls, freeze your products, and then set your AIM function to month end so that those exceptions do populate. So once the exceptions are populated, they are located in ICAMU, but we'll look at the ICAM report first and some of the functionality there, some of the fields you should have set up in your ICAM, which we just talked about. So I have a scheduled job run for my ICAM for month end. Again, that will run at the end of the month, and I have it scheduled to run on the last calendar day of the month at 11 p.m. in the evening after all of the processing is complete. And then you have your next screen, which is your ranges. Now you can run an ICAM by warehouse, product, or product line or rank. Usually they run wide open so that you can capture all of those items across the network for all warehouses. Now these are the exception fields that I was talking about. You're going to want to merge your history, calculate your product line usage, recalculate your ordering controls, Most of these are yes, no options. Do you want to print products frozen this run? Do you want to review or print those? Do you want to print your sales, your unusual sales, and your stockouts? If you're using min-max, do you want to base that on 12 turns? I have mine set to yes. Now this field here, set low usage items to order as needed. That's also yes or no. You don't want to automatically, or maybe you do, but it's best for the buyers to review those orders needed items taken on hits and or slow usage items that are stocking to switch to order as needed. Freeze products would be yes, because this is your month-end exception. Your upper and trend caps here is related to your seasonality. These caps will create an exception if it is out of those ranges. Then you have your review for your exceptions. Do you want to review these exceptions, or do you want to print those exceptions? And ICAMU, the whole purpose is to review those and make corrections accordingly. Then you have any report trending variances, and you put in a percentage there. If you want to print status messages to screen, and then you have your extended lead time seasonal forward and trending items. That is for seasonal items. Say you don't, I know Grant talked about the two methods, forward and the comparing year over year, the trending history. If there is no history, it gives you a warning to say there's not enough history to create. And then you have your manual exceptions, could be yes, month in, or no. We have those set to month end. And I went by that really quick. Any questions in reference to the month in ICAM? Okay, so now we will go into the exceptions, the different exceptions. Again, the exceptions are created the month in processing report that we just reviewed, and also at the purchase of inventory. Go through here. So I'm going to evaluate, which I can't go through all these exceptions, but I believe I'll go through the important ones. You have your 50% variable lead time. The product is frozen if the new average lead time is 50% less and or greater than the last lead time. And you have your new products, all products that come into the system that are new. Usually those can be frozen for 6 months and or 12 months. So that gives the opportunity for the buyer to look at that and see if there's any sales traction on the item. If there is sales traction on the item, they might want to go in and unfreeze it and let your controls take over according to what sales is. And or they could just leave it frozen and look at it next month. Okay. Then you have your extended stock out. So this is your stock out for 15 consecutive days, and the buyer should review that. Now, for this one, you're stocking out month over month, and it could be because the supplier don't have product due to the supply issues today. But your history, as product continues to stock out, your history is no longer visible to the buyer. So the buyer may want to go in and adjust the history to what they were selling historically before they began to stock out. So they can go in and put in an average usage, and I'll show you an example of that and where they would go to do that. Now your usage less than half unit. The usage over the number of months that are specified in the calculation is less than half, and it's frozen. These are your low usage items you want your buyers to take a look at. Maybe they want to consider changing those to order as needed. It has low usage. Don't want to visually spend time looking at those anymore. Set it to OAN because you have parameters over here set for products that are frozen as order is needed. That can do the reverse. You're taking hits on order as needed. You may want to consider changing those back to stocking. Then you have your usage exception. Usage exception are those anomaly sales. You have usage exception where you're selling an average of 1, 2, 3, and then you get a hit for 50. Okay, well, is that going to be ongoing usage? The buyer may want to reach out to sales and say, hey, is this a one-hit wonder, or is this going to be continued sales? If it's going to be continued sales, it's a new customer that comes in, they can go in and let the 50 calculate into their controls, bring in the inventory to support the customer. If not, they can override that 50 and put it back down to the 1, 2, or 3 units that they were selling before. But it's real important that the buyers stay in communication with sales so that their controls are adjusted accordingly. Make sure they're not over inventorying. Then you have your zero lead time. We talked about this earlier. You never want a 0 lead time. Again, that is a part of your order point calculation. So it's real important you have that lead time in there so that it calculates your inventory to support that lead time. And I know Grant talked a little bit about this. You have your threshold bins, it could be customer commits, and or it could be a special promo that's going on. You put in so your order point don't drop below that that level. Again, you can look at those. Do I need to expire it? It's low activity. You no longer want to carry that in there anymore. And or if sales are picking up over that, you can also do an override too to support those additional sales. Now you have your frozen hits for your order is needed, do not reorder. Again, those are set up in your ICSR records to what you want to review and the number of hits. So for the products for the frozen products with hits, say if they are frozen for that permanent indefinite period for your order point and line points are 0, and they freeze it with a 9-9 in your ICSW record, and they start taking on hits, and you specify that. You specify that in your ICSR record. As Brent said, 3 hits in 12 months. If you're taking on those hits, you're going to want to take and review those and possibly unfreeze those as well and continue to stock those so that you're not losing sales. Because as you're taking hits, it's basically you're losing sales on those. Same thing with your frozen products with hits for your order is needed items. Your order is needed items are taken on hits. It's the verse of what we said. You can stock it and or you can change it back to OAN based upon these boundaries. So if you are taking hits on orders needed, what does that mean? Well, you're losing sales. So you're going to want to go take a look and possibly stock those and update your controls to bring that product in. Then you have your lead time and your safety review. Again, boundaries are set up in your ICSR record, and these are daily that come through. That's why it's really important to get these daily exceptions reviewed before they buy, because that will control the amount of inventory that you bring in. So say you set up your boundaries for your safety review, and you're setting up, say, a 25 and 75% boundary, and it warns you maybe if you continuously under 25%, your inventory stock levels may be too low, and or if it's over 75%, maybe you're stocking too much, and then they can go and do the adjustment to their safety review. And then you have your purchase order lead time. At the time of receipt, again, it looks at your product availability. You have min and max set as well to say it's out of the guardrails that you have set. It ignores the lead time that is frozen. You also have boundaries in there that you set as well. You may set, I have mine set at don't go no less than a 7-day lead time, and don't go no more than a 60-day lead time. If it goes out of those boundaries, it will create the exception for the buyer to review, make the determination. Do they want to keep that? If it is an anomaly, leave the exception boundary that you have set up, or they may want to change their lead time. Maybe it's not 7 days and it truly is 14 or 20 days. They can go ahead and adjust that as well. Or they can keep the lead time, the long lead time, and let that calculate into the control if it is truly what the run rate is for the lead time for that vendor. Okay. And you have your automated controls here that are set up in ICSR, and then you have your seasonal trending. Your min-max exceeded will, if you're using seasonal trending, those will also be visible for the buyers to review. So now we will go to our ICAM View Center and take a look at some of these exceptions. Okay, so this is your ICAM processing center where they will spend the majority of their time when cleaning those exceptions. And then you have your search panels here on the left-hand side that Grant was talking about. So a buyer can come and say, well, I just want to look at a specific warehouse. They can sort and seg however they want to do it, or I'm just going to look at my buyer number, or I'm going to look at it vendor by vendor. They can do it that way as well. Because again, a lot of times, because of the way you have your parameters set, you're going to have quite a bit of exceptions to review, and you're going to want to prioritize those most important exceptions. And I know Grant highlighted those ones that you're going to want to key focus on. And then this is the selection, the exception selection that Grant was showing. This is where you would find visibility to those exceptions. Maybe you want to just look at each exception individually so that you're in that mindset. You can make the changes accordingly based upon what type of exception you're in. And then you have your different reasons, your 50% variable lead time, new product, extended stock out, usage last, those are your low, any products that are superseded, usage exception, and your 0 lead time. So I'm not going to filter by those selections. Because this is a test and demo environment, I only have a few selections, exceptions that we're going to view that is in my test and my demo site. So here you have all of your exceptions here listed in this grid. This tells you how many exceptions you have total. I have 53 total that needs to be reviewed and managed. So we'll go and just take a look at a few of these. So my 1002, as you can see right here, this is an exception and it's a PO lead time exception. So to drill into that exception, you come here, you have your product description, you have your usage analysis screen if you wanted to change your order method. Then these are your exceptions that are listed. If the buyers don't get to them, they will continue month over month to be visible. So I don't manage the exceptions. Again, this is just a test environment. So you can see I've had some exception dates from the past, way from the past in here. So I'll look at the most recent exception from January 23. And then you drill into it and it gives you a brief description of what has happened. It tells you the purchase order number. The PO had a lead time of 936 days when compared to product lead time of 5 days, which is exceeded the defined maximum of 150%. As you can see down here, that lead time here is set to ignore this lead time. Here in the middle, you'll see my average lead time of 5. But because I have guardrails set up in my ICSR record, as I don't want no less than 7 days and no more than 60 days, and because 5 fell below the 7, it automatically puts the 7 lead time in my ICSW. So we'll go take a look at managing that item. You come into your maintenance, it automatically brings you to your ICSW screen. And as you can see down here, is my average lead time was set to 7. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that lead time history because I want to ignore this lead time just to show you what your order points and controls would do. So we're going to do ignore. If you didn't want to ignore it, you didn't want to accept it, you would just leave it ignored. And then calculate, yes. Update, calculate, yes. And then you would come back to here. And as you can see, that average lead time is now 936. Okay. Now, to accept that, this is what our original order points and line points were. You do the calculation here. Now, it's going to adjust your order points and line points, but because I have guardrails set up in the system to 7, and if it's more than, which 963 days was more than my 60-day guardrail, it put in the 60 for me. So that may be more of an acceptable level. And if not, you can also change this to whatever the buyers are going to know what their lead times are running, specifically by vendor. So that's good. All right, now we're going to go and take a look at another exception here. We'll look at the 131. Now this one has 3 exceptions. So I chose this one because it's got a multitude of things going on with it. You're constantly stocking out of this item. You have low usage. Well, low usage is because you're continually stocking out of it. It's no longer calculating any history as well. You've lost visibility to that. And then you have a lead time of 0. So this item is kind of not doing anything. It's kind of stagnant. Well, let's see if there's any exception messages, and there's not. So we'll go to our main team warehouse products and take a look at those parameters so that we can make some adjustments. So I'm going to want to read, if you want to do an override because you're losing visibility to your history, you're going to want to look at your method back. It's 4 back. That's also based upon your ranking, A, B, C, D, if it's looking back 3, 4, 5, or 6. We'll go into our usage screen, and as you can see, it's stocking out over here so many days, month over month. So we can go ahead, the buyers can put in a usage. So say we'll just do an average of 20 units of what we were selling prior to the product stocking out. Here, And then you have the option to put a reason. I'll just put stock out here. You don't have to do every one, but if they do time permits, they could. This is just to kind of let him know or her know, what did they do to this exception? Why was it overridden? And it kind of gives a reason. Maybe somebody's filling in for that person that's no longer there. And they would see that message and know, oh, well, the previous buyer put in an exception, okay? So we look at the non-forecasted rate here, it's 0. And again, we want to double check our lead time here is 0. We're going to put in, I'm just going to put an average of 20-day lead time. And then you want to unfreeze to see what your controls will do here. So I'm going to unfreeze the extended stock out to recalculate my lead time as well as my override usage. So I'm going to recalculate. And I did make the change, so I'm going to go back. I don't believe it saved my changes. We'll go back to our usage here. And it did not. So, because I was talking so fast, I overlooked that. 20, 20, 20, and 20. And then we will do our update, and recalculate. And then make sure, go back here. And now it is calculating my controls here, 1627 and 108, my order. Based upon that usage forecast that I put in, it's calculating an average of 4 back. My usage was 20. And then it is using my average lead time of 20. So now you have controls set up in there. So the vendor starts shipping the product again, you know, you're not caught left with no inventory because you no longer had visibility to it. It froze it. You're going to want to unfreeze it, put some history back in there so that you can replenish accordingly, so that as stock does come available, you'll be all set on your inventory. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the next one, which is the new product. New product, this one here is new product and PO lead time. So we'll take a look at that here. We'll go fast because I know that I'm running out of time, and I apologize for that. Maintain warehouse products. Our lead time here is average of 7 days. We'll look at our usage. Take a look at that. There is no product, no sales on this new product. So the buyer makes a decision. Do I want to continue to freeze this month over month? If you were to gain traction and gain sales, you may want to unfreeze this so that your history can populate and your orders can start populating those new sales. Okay. This frozen month here, I just kind of want to mention that. It's frozen for 6 months. Again, new product is frozen for 6 and 12 months. Each month over month that goes by is in 1 month increments. So this will go down to next month 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the product is no longer frozen. Okay. And then here. Take a look at our low usage. This, again, just low usage item. What do you want to do? Take a look at it. Do you want to stock it anymore? Do you want to switch it to OAN? Again, another decision that the buyer can make. So there's no usage here. I would go in, switch that to order as needed in my general tab, switch it to OAN here, and then recalculate and save, and then you won't see that item again unless it starts taking on hits again. Okay, now we're going to go into, real quickly, we will go into our manual product list. So you have that option to make changes in your ICAMU for the exceptions that are there. For example, instead of unfreezing every time you look into the exception, you can unfreeze them all in one fell swoop. So you can do that in your ICAMU. Or if you have to make a mass change on specific criteria, stocking, your ARP replenishment path, your vendor, maybe your order method, you can also make this change here, and you can also import a product list from an Excel spreadsheet as well. So I'm going to go do an example of those, and then go back here, and then we'll do our manual product list. So I'm going to show an example of, I want to unfreeze in a mass change. So I'm just going to go use a few of these as for the sake of demonstrating, I'm going to pick those items that are frozen, and I'm going to do a mass update. And all of these selections will come on and say, what do you want to do? So I want to unfreeze those. So I'm come down to my frozen product, and I'm going to check these update boxes, make sure the update boxes are checked. And I'm going to leave these blank because I want to unfreeze my product. So then you would go to submit, and it would tell you those were updated. And then as you can see to the right here, those are no longer frozen. And then you can go ahead and delete those out and work your next batch and so forth, however you feel is easier. Then we're going to do a manual change here as well. And I just picked an example. We're going to go ahead and do a change our order method. Say I want to change my order method from EOQ to all min-max on a specific vendor across all warehouses. So I'm going to do a manual product list, and I will do a range from 1 to 5 is my warehouse range, and I'm going to do a vendor, Toto 101, and I want to change those parameters. So you would go to click, create and continue, and it's telling me you have 123 items across those distribution centers that you want to change. So I'm going to select those. I'm going to do a mass update on those, and then I'm going to change my order method. So we're going to come down to my order method here, and I'm going to change those to min-max. They were set to EOQ. I want to change the order method, and I'm going to submit. And then it lets you know that all of those have been updated. If you want to double check, you could go into your maintain warehouse products, and there is your min-max parameter. You can go back out, and then you can delete those out of the exception center once you've completed, since the change was updated. Hey, Julie, and that is it. Whew. All right, so I've got a few minutes for questions. I'm sorry that was very fast.
No, that was great, Angela. Good.
Yeah, we just touched on the basics.
Yep. I wanted to bring up one thing. When you're changing your status from stock to order as needed, always go out and check to see if you have open orders for those products before you change them.
Yeah.
That causes trouble if you change them from stock to order as needed and it's already on an order. So always do a look at your open orders before you make a change like that. All right, we're looking for questions. I don't see anything in the chat or in the question box, so I'll give it a minute for people to submit their questions.
Okay.
And we'll see what comes in. Grant, did you have any follow-up that you wanted to mention here from what Angela showed?
No, I mean, she's right on track with going through them. You know, the only thing I always suggest is, again, we only have so much time, so know your priorities, i.e. lead time and usage is the core. So if you can't get it all done, prioritize the exceptions you're going to work. And then the other key that I shared was changing those parameters. If you're getting too many, squeeze the list down so you're at least getting the most important. I go into companies often and they'll say, oh, we make it about halfway through the exceptions, and then we get caught back up in life. Then I'm saying, well, then let's change your parameters so that you're getting through all the exceptions. That's the only thing I wanted to point out, Julie, because and Angela, it makes it work much better because we're getting the bigger ones.
For sure.
So we do have one question. Is there a way to keep an exception from repeating? For example, if we want to keep a product as order as needed, it will repeat every month if the criteria is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to keep repeating. Now we've got, for just to throw it out there, the enhancement request. On other systems, we've got that a little bit different, and it's one of the enhancement requests. And the way we work that is, if it takes hits, let's say in 3 months, or 3 hits in 12 months, it reports it to you. And then what we do is we add another, again, dynamic parameters, we call it. To show up, we say it also has to take a hit. This is the enhancement or a mod some companies have as well. It has to take a hit last month as well. So what happens if we sold it January, February, March, the 3 hits show up and it makes it show up on the report. It's going to show up. But now, even though in April it has 3 hits, it has a second criteria that says, and a hit last month. So the whole idea is show it to me when it hits the 3 hits. And then if I don't do anything with it, it's not going to show up again until it takes another hit. So now in April, it doesn't hit. In May, it doesn't. And then in June, it takes another hit. It would show back up. So that's a great enhancement to your system for that particular one. And it's easy to talk about. It's 3 hits or more in the last 12 months or however you have it set up, plus also a hit last month, and that will take them off in between. But there's nothing standard to do that today.
Okay, thanks, Grant. Okay, as Grant said, please consider attending TUG 23. It's in Palm Springs, California this year. Grant will be leading several breakouts, roundtables, and keynotes. For those of you who are TUG members and have attended in the past, Central Data will be there this year with a booth. We're leading multiple breakout sessions, and we also have our famous client appreciation party, and our Jeopardy game is returning this year. If you're not a TUG member and you don't know what we're talking about, go to the usergroup.org for all the information there on the conference and the benefits of membership. And for those of you who attended today, we had to go through this area pretty quickly. It's a big topic. If you have more questions or would like some one-on-one help with your ICAMU exceptions or helping you manage your biggest asset, which is your inventory, please reach out to Central Data and request some training. You can do that through our support at centraldata.com. Just put in a request that you want additional training, and we'll work to schedule that with you individually or with a group. I want to thank you for attending today. Grant, Angela, great job. Thanks for all the information and your knowledge. And we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar as well to all of those who attended. So thank you again.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Grant.
Okay, have a good day.
You as well.
Thank you.